Okay, folks, prophecy alert update here on the mass animal die-offs going on worldwide, and it's still ongoing at unprecedented levels. In fact, in many areas, at record levels, never before seen, and of course, for many different reasons. But all in all, regardless of the cause, it's signs of the times when these things are happening at unprecedented levels like this. Okay, and we know that animals are dying all over the world. So far, there have been over 198 known and recorded mass die-off events in more than 52 countries or territories around the world so far just in 2017. And of course, we know, as I've often shared in these videos, Hosea 4:3 in the end time prophecy says, "Therefore shall the land mourn, and everyone that dwelleth therein shall languish, with the beasts of the field, and with the fowls of heaven. Yea, the fish of the sea also shall be taken away." And then in Zephaniah 1, verses 2 and 3, it says, "I will utterly consume all things from off the land, saith the Lord. I will consume man and beast. I will consume the fowls of heaven and the fish of the sea, and the stumbling blocks with the wicked, and I will cut man off from the land, saith the Lord." And as a matter of fact, as I mentioned, we know that after the opening of the seventh seal, in Revelation 8:9, it's prophesied that a third of all sea life on earth dies. And when you look at what's going on in the Pacific, many people equate that particular prophecy with what's going on with Fukushima in the Pacific and the die-off of all the marine life at unprecedented levels there, especially along the west coast of North America in many areas. And we'll look at that. In fact, that's where we'll start here. And we're going to look at some of the most relevant biblical die-offs going on around the world, and we'll do a brief update here, starting with this first piece. And like I said, talking about the tragic die-offs happening along the west coast. And so we'll start with a few pieces here, talking about what's going on there on the west coast. And this piece here, along with the next couple, are from Energy News, and they're always great because they've got reports with multiple local news reports linked up, and different local news outlets and what they're reporting going on over there, all linked up, and of course scientists and other experts reports are always linked up. So I always like to link people up with their stuff. And this is a piece here talking about how the mass die-off is ongoing along the U.S. West Coast that me and many other people have been reporting on for some time since the Fukushima disaster. And it says here in a quote from the TV interview that's linked up, it says, "It's just not clear why all the marine life is washing up like this. Reports are coming in every day, and according to many experts, it's unknown organisms that are apparently eating away brains and hearts of the affected marine life there, and it's new infections that have many experts are saying have never before been seen." And of course, it doesn't take much to put two and two together with what's going on with Fukushima over there, and and how that's impacting and basically killing the Pacific Ocean in many respects. And so there's a piece talking about the mass die-offs, and there's a lot more facts in the piece, but I got a lot to get to, so I kind of want to flow through these quick, and I'll link you guys up to them, and you can check them out more in depth if you wish. I'm just trying to show you here that the Word of God is unfolding on a daily basis in regards to this prophecy, and of course many others. Here we see the mass die-offs on the West Coast continues. And this next report here goes on to talk a little bit more about some of these unknown diseases or organisms that are eating away the brains and hearts of the marine life there. And this is from just a few days ago, on May the 2nd. And it's talking about, as we see here, this brain-rotting toxin that's killing huge numbers of marine animals on the California coast. And it says here the die-offs have skyrocketed over the past week. And of course, that's a report from May the 2nd, so about 4 days ago now. And according to experts, in a quote here, it says, it's the worst year we've ever seen. And they're talking mass deaths of sea lions, dolphins, birds, and officials warn that the outbreak of this brain-rotting toxin that's killing the marine life there on the coast of California they're warning that this outbreak is spreading, okay, and can contaminate other marine life and potentially birds. And so I'll link you guys up with that piece as well, and it's got all kinds of local news reports linked up in the piece here. Then this piece here, continuing on what's going on with the die-offs of the marine life on the West Coast. This is a piece that was came across the wire this morning, and as you see, it talks about how there's alarm over the record die-off of marine life along the West Coast, and that huge numbers are washing up on the shores in many areas. And apparently, according to scientists, this is just the tip of the iceberg. And several types of animals have been found dead. And again, the report here goes on to reference the hemorrhaging from the brain infection that's been reported in the previous two pieces that we looked at. So their brains are hemorrhaging. They're warning that this outbreak is spreading, and it's a brain-rotting toxin killing record numbers of marine animals on the California coast and all up and down the West Coast in many areas. And so, like we seen in the first report that mentioned it, many of the experts are calling it an unknown organisms that are eating away the brains and hearts of the infected marine life there. So very tragic situation as these unprecedented record die-offs continue along the West Coast, the likes of which has never been seen before. Of course, many attribute it to Fukushima, and I can say with the utmost confidence that it is certainly, at the very least, playing a large role in these mass mortality events, if not the driving factor. Of course, it is prophesied in the scriptures, but we know that the Fukushima is obviously having an effect, and certainly more signs of the times. But it's not just on the West Coast, as we're going to see once we move along. I believe the next piece here is from the West Coast. I believe it's from San Francisco. As a matter of fact, it's talking about how for 7 weeks now, hundreds upon hundreds of leopard shark corpses have been washing up on the beaches of San Francisco Bay, turning the city by the bay into the dead shark capital of California. It says here in this report. So again, reports consistent with the die-offs going on along the West Coast. But as I said before, they're also seeing mass die-offs in the Atlantic in many areas, and specifically in this next piece that I'll show you here, as reported by NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And as you see in this report here, there has been a mysterious spike in humpback whale deaths on the Atlantic coast. And it goes on to talk a little bit more about it, saying federal officials have declared an unusual mortality event after finding a high number of dead whales washing ashore on the East Coast. Scientists are investigating the cause, which could provide greater insight into larger environmental issues. And it goes on to talk more about how they're examining it, but it was reported on April the 26th by NOAA, and I'll link you up to the report, that over 41 humpback whales have washed up dead during the past year in what they're calling an unusual mortality event that the federal officials have declared along the East Coast of America. And that's going on the East Coast, and then of course you got the record die-offs going on of all the marine life in the Pacific over on the West Coast. So certainly serious events here, as we're seeing these mass die-offs continue worldwide, and we got a few more pieces here to look at. And moving along here and into another report from the 26th of April, in which thousands of dead fish washed up in St. Petersburg, Florida. And it says here, thousands of dead fish are reeking up a St. Pete neighborhood, and things are about to get worse. The severe drought could mean more fish floating belly up in a neighborhood nearby more frequently as these conditions continue, it goes on to say in the report. So there you have it, a report here, and of course I'll link you up to all the reports in the description box below, but it's talking about thousands of dead fish washing up there in St. Petersburg, Florida, in the United States. Then in this next piece here, reported on April the 29th, tons of dead fish washed up on beaches over in Kuwait, and this piece here from the Kuwait Times. And it says here, the Public Authority for Agricultural Affairs and Fish Resources has detected considerable numbers of dead fish on the beaches and within Kuwait Bay, urging Environment Public Authority to act and stop the dumping of sewage water into the bay. Report said over 5 tons of dead fish were removed from Kuwait beaches. And informed sources alleged that some fishermen might have been using explosives to kill the fish so as to collect them later, and they're actually giving warnings to not buy fish from unlicensed, unofficial outlets over there. But there you have it, over 5 tons of dead fish there in Kuwait on the beaches. On the 30th of April, thousands more dead fish were reported to have been found floating on the Yarkon River in Israel. As it says here in the report, over the past few days, residents who live near the Yarkon River have been waking up to a concerning sight. Prolonged pollution and the flow of sewage into the river have caused the death of thousands of fish. And it has links up video footage here from some of the residents, and again we see thousands more fish dying off here in another event. This one in the Yarkon River in Israel. Then over in Lake Kunashak in Russia, and this was reported on May 1st. There was 100 tons of fish that died in this event here, and I'll link you up to the report, but I've got it pulled up here in Google Translate, and as the headline reads here, dead fish covered the surface of the lake in Chelyabinsk region, and there's video footage of it, so that will be linked up below as well. And again, 100 tons of fish died off in this particular event here in Kunashak, Russia, or at Lake Kunashak in Russia. And in another report here, this one is actually from Santa Barbara, California, down in the States. And so more die-offs here on the West Coast. And this one was actually reported on April the 25th. And it says here, hundreds of seabirds washing up, dead or dying in Santa Barbara. And apparently there are scores of birds and sea lions as well suffering from likely domoic acid poisoning there. And so from fish, we move to birds. And this is a report from May the 4th coming out of Galveston, Texas, the USA, and hundreds of migratory birds were found dead in a mass die-off event there in Galveston, Texas. More info regarding bird die-offs here, as apparently 50,000 hens had to be killed due to the bird flu outbreak over in Nyköping, Sweden. And this next piece here was reported on April the 29th, and it's talking about a massive die-off of deer newborns and female deer in the past winter that was recorded. It was catastrophic, like nothing they've ever seen over in Wyoming, down in the United States. And the The report goes on to say that Wyoming deer researcher Kevin Monteith and a handful of others wandered Wyoming's southwest mountains in search of mule deer newborns, and they found 70 and placed on each animal a radio collar to monitor its survival. It was the second summer of what was supposed to be a 3-year study that had shown on average a little more than a third of the fawns in the Wyoming range herd survive to their first birthdays. It goes on to talk a little bit more about the details, but basically, to make a long story short, for the sake of time here, that it's reporting on a catastrophic, the likes of which was never seen there in Wyoming, mass die-offs of newborn deers and female deers. And so that report will be linked below as well, my friends. And this next piece is a report from just a couple days ago on May 4th, and it's talking about how 10,000 cattle died due to the rare spring snowstorm that hit in Colorado, down in the States. And so here's a report on that, and it says that ranchers are dealing with a big problem from this past weekend's blizzard in southeastern Colorado. The snowstorm killed thousands of cattle. And it says here, they'll actually drown in the snow. The snow will get up in their lungs, said Prowers County rancher Justin Wilhite. And apparently this man lost a third of his cattle. And he said 7-foot-high snowdrifts buried cows and toppled acres of wheat crops in Prowers County and Baca County near Kansas and Oklahoma, and near the Kansas and Oklahoma borders. And this is costing farmers millions of dollars, apparently. And there are no confirmed official numbers yet, but it says here in the report that it's estimated that as many as 10,000 plus cattle were killed in the rare spring storm. And speaking of cattle, and this last piece here that I'll finish off with, reported on May 6th, earlier today, it's talking about how 18,000 cattle died after flash flooding hit areas in Samburu, Kenya. As it says here, livestock farmers in Samburu County are counting losses after an estimated 18,000 heads of livestock were swept by flash floods following a heavy downpour in the country. Livelihoods are now under threat in an area that has suffered the brunt of drought that has left hundreds of livestock dead due to starvation. And it goes on to talk a little bit more about that, but there you see it there, an estimated loss of 18,000 cattle dying off there in flash flooding events in Samburu, Kenya. And so there we have it, folks. I mean, we reported on all kinds of die-offs that happened recently, and I talked about the Hosea 4:3 mass animal die-off prophecies, and of course Zephaniah's prophecies in Zephaniah 1 verses 2 and 3. We mentioned the Revelation prophecies on a third of the marine life and the ocean life of all sea life on earth dying at some point. And I think we're well on our way towards that, and many of the prophecies before that are being fulfilled. Hosea 4:3, Zephaniah, as I said, are progressing and being fulfilled before our very eyes, my friends. And of course, as we move along, then we're going to get to the prophecies there in Revelation. I mean, Revelation 8:9 says, "And the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were also destroyed." And of course, we know that that happens after the opening of the seventh seal there in Revelation 8:9, and it is prophesied that a third of all sea life on earth dies. And when we're seeing these unprecedented events happening worldwide in a record-breaking fashion, the likes of which never before seen, certainly we can say with confidence that these are more signs of the times, my friends. So, I mean, it's like when the prophet Jeremiah, I always like to mention this, but when the prophet Jeremiah was sent to warn the people of Judah about their unrepentant and sinful rebellion against God, he prophesied a warning to them regarding the coming judgment of God upon Judah saying, for the mountains will I take up a weeping and a wailing, and for the habitations of the wilderness a lamentation, because they are burned up, so that none can pass through them. Neither can men hear the voice of the cattle. Both the fowl of the heavens and the beast are fled, they are gone. And in the same way, my friends, God sent warnings to Judah regarding judgment through the prophet Jeremiah. There is a much more worldwide, universal warning of similar judgment here in these end times in which we live, but of course on a much more cataclysmic, global scale. And so I'll finish with that, my friends. I pray you're right with the Lord, that you've repented of your sins, and that you're born again by the Holy Spirit through faith in Jesus Christ today. Until next time, this is Brother Joey signing off. Much love, and God bless you in Jesus' mighty name. I will consume man and beast. I will consume the fowls of heaven and the fish of the sea, and the stumbling blocks with the wicked, and I will cut man off from the land, saith the Lord. And as a matter of fact, as I mentioned, we know that after the opening of the seventh seal, in Revelation 8:9, it's prophesied that a third of all sea life on earth dies. And when you look at what's going on in the Pacific, many people equate that particular prophecy with what's going on with Fukushima and the Pacific, and the die-off of all the marine life at unprecedented levels there, especially along the west coast of North America in many areas. And we'll look at that. In fact, that's where we'll start here, and we're going to look at some of the most relevant biblical die-offs going on around the world, and we'll do a brief update here, starting with this first piece. And like I said, talking about the tragic die-offs happening along the west coast. And so we'll start with a few pieces here, talking about what's going on there on the west coast. And this piece here, along with the next couple, are from Energy News, and they're always great because they've got reports with multiple local news reports linked up, and known and recorded mass die-off events in more than 52 countries or territories around the world so far just in 2017. And of course, we know, as I've often shared in these videos, Hosea 4:3 in the end time prophecy says, "Therefore shall the land mourn, and everyone that dwelleth therein shall languish, with the beasts of the field, and with the fowls of heaven. Yea, the fish of the sea also shall be taken away." And then in Zephaniah 1, verses 2 and 3, it says, "I will utterly consume all things from off the land, saith the Lord." Okay, folks, prophecy alert update here on the mass animal die-offs going on worldwide, and it's still ongoing at unprecedented levels. In fact, in many areas, at record levels, never before seen, and of course for many different reasons. But all in all, regardless of the cause, it's signs of the times when these things are happening at unprecedented levels like this. Okay, and we know that animals are dying all over the world. So far, there have been over 198 different local news outlets and what they're reporting going on over there, all linked up, and of course scientists and other experts reports are always linked up. So I always like to link people up with their stuff. And this is a piece here talking about how the mass die-off is ongoing along the U.S. West Coast that me and many other people have been reporting on for some time since the Fukushima disaster. And it says here in a quote from the TV interview that's linked up, it says, "It's just not clear why all the marine life is